So I've had a lot of housings. I've learned a lot about underwater photography in the past. So here's a few tips so you don't flood or mess up your shoot. I've had a lot of underwater housings in the past, and I want to tell you a few tips that are going to help you setting up your underwater housing. It's irrelevant about which housing you have, be it Nauticam, Subal, or CNC, or anything else. These principles are all the same. The start is really your battery. Is it charged and is it in the camera? Because it doesn't work without that, clearly. Next one, memory cards. Is your memory card in? Is it formatted? And is it unlocked? And is it the right memory card? I'm afraid to say I have been on a few shoots when people have left their memory cards behind or got the wrong ones and it doesn't work. So the next thing is, keep your camera turning on. And when it does, and this is critical because this ruins all footage, is sensor dust. And you need to have a look. The one way to check is to put your f-stop as high as possible, so everything's in focus, as high as it can go, point it at a white screen and check. Obviously there's probably loads more blogs on how to clean sensor dust, but you need to note before you put it in the housing, before you can't do anything about it, is your camera sensor clean? The next thing about the housing, it has a base plate, and it might sound really dumb, but if you don't have this little guy with you, you can't go underwater. And I've seen people trying to wedge towels and toilet paper into their housings to keep the camera in place. So base plate goes on the bottom of the camera. So now with the base plate on, everything checked, we're going to put it into the housing. So first I want to make sure that the buttons are lined up with the buttons on the housing. So off, everything else is aligned, my camera is in the off position. Just make sure they're all lining up, because sometimes the housing will close even though the buttons are misaligned, and all you're doing is breaking the components inside by forcing it. So let's lift the camera and the housing up. We're going to just gently allow gravity to lock it in place. So here we go. At this point, we want to just have a little look at our O-ring, because the O-ring is the only thing that separates your camera from all the salt water and unpleasantness on the outside. So no marlin hairs, which is my dog, or your cat hairs, or sand. Nothing must be in here. So have a good inspection, make sure it's all clean. And if needed, take the O-ring out, give it a grease as per the manufacturer's instructions, but just check that it's clean. And not just this one O-ring, but all the O-rings, and there are quite a few, so make sure O-rings are clean. I'm just about ready to put the back of the housing on, and my housing has a pressure gauge, and it has a separate battery and a separate switch for that. So over here, I'm going to turn it on, and I'm going to check that the light is indicating it's on. So putting the back of the housing on, and locking it in place. Okay, so at this point, because I've put the camera in a downward position, any dust or sand that is inside the housing has now fallen onto the inside of my dome port. So I need to check that. And one way to check that is to take the cover off and then just hold it up towards the light, look really closely, and I can see that there is in fact something here. So what I need to do now is unlock the dome port and then just gently take a puffer. You don't ever want to touch the inside of your dome port with your fingers. Any oils left behind will affect it and could get condensation or smears, and it's really hard to clean the inside of your dome port. So take your puffer and just gently blow away any dust. Hopefully it comes out. If it's really difficult, you could possibly use a brush. Just use a little bit of static electricity and try to get it off, and look at where you're working exactly to get the pieces off. And then once you're happy that it's all clean on the inside, we'll close that up again and lock it in place. So the final thing is my pressure switch. Your housing may or may not have one. I find them really useful because you know confidently if the housing is holding its pressure. The little alarm light at the back tells you if the vacuum inside the housing has been broken. And it has another very beneficial addition, is that you're removing the water vapor and air that's inside the housing, which slows down any condensation problems we might have. Let's give it a few squeezes and the light will go green. Make sure to put the cover back on. Cool, and that's it. Housing's ready to go. Everything's prepared. I can't see any problems. Let's go diving. So this wasn't meant to be a definitive guide of how to set up a camera. These are just a few tips that I find really useful and the thinking process that I go through when I go underwater. So if you found this useful, please consider subscribing and watch the next video. I won't look. You can just hit it. Just go. Hit it. Thanks.